on Talk Radio.
Welcome back, good evening. It is 5:34. Should the proms be decolonised by removing the songs Rule Britannia and Land of Hope and Glory? I'm outraged by the suggestion. Are you? Well, Stuart from Wiltshire texts in to say, if this isn't a good excuse to cancel your TV licence, then I don't know what is. From Face, the BBC Symphony Orchestra, its Finnish principal guest conductor and the other performers could play whatever they want at Last Night of the Proms as long as they pay for it themselves. And it's not paid by TV licence fee payers via the BBC. From Lee Hennis, he says, ban them. If it upsets Middle England, I'm all for it. But from Linda on Twitter, are other countries having the same problems as the UK? Are they being stripped of their heritage? Or is it that we are so weak we daren't fight back? 0344 499 1000, my phone number on this. You can text talk to 87222 or vote in our poll at Talk Radio on Twitter. Right now, though, the results overwhelming. 94% of you outraged by the suggestion that Rule Britannia and Land of Hope and Glory should go.
The Political Panel on Talk Radio.
Oh, there's nothing better than Dame Vera Lynn singing Land of Hope and Glory, is there? Or is there? Well, if you're the BBC, you want that axed, you want that erased, you want that out of our collective consciousness altogether. Oliver Dowden, furious about this, so the Culture Secretary has tweeted over the past couple of hours, Rule Britannia and Land of Hope and Glory are highlights of the Last Night of the Proms, share concerns of many about their potential removal and have raised this with the BBC. Confident, forward-looking nations don't erase their history, they add to it. Well, what does our political panel think? Emma Webb is a Conservative commentator from the right, and Richard Power Said is a former Labour advisor from the left. Richard, where do you stand on this?
I've just read the Times article this is all based on, and unless there is some extra info which I don't know about, it's the flimsiest story imaginable. It's just been created to create clickbait. There are a number of different pieces of music that can't be played this year because of the coronavirus. Mahler's Second Symphony is one of them. One commissioner at the BBC has said, like that piece, like a few other pieces, it's possible the same thing's going to happen to Land of Hope and Glory because it requires a really big orchestra.
It's an excuse, Richard.
That's it.
Richard, it's an excuse.
You're making it up. It's nothing to do with it being racist. It's not going to stop it being played next year. It's being made up to divide people. Why are we talking about this made up
I'll tell you
story?
why. I'll tell you why, because this story, number one, isn't made up. I know the journalist behind it, and he's a very, very good journalist, and he has gone to multiple sources who have confirmed that the BBC is terrified that because of the Black Lives Matter movement, it would be insensitive this year at least to perform Rule Britannia and Land of Hope and Glory. They are using the cloak of the coronavirus crisis and the fact that there's not going to be an audience there to try and hide behind.
Well, he had only one source in his article, and it was an anonymous source, and it was clearly somebody with a grudge. I'll tell you what.
The BBC haven't denied this, Richard. The BBC haven't denied this story.
The BBC said, we're not doing it potentially because of coronavirus. We might do it. They didn't say anything about not doing it next year. So it's a true story,
so we agree on that.
No, we didn't. That's not what I said at all. They said that it's not. It's clearly a confected story because there's no evidence behind it. I'll tell you what. No one fighting racism could care less about this song. It doesn't matter. They care about stopping police from killing black people in detention. They care about.
That's not true, because Dr. Kehinde Andrews, the professor of Black Studies at Birmingham City University, was on the show earlier and said that neither of these songs should be performed ever again at the proms.
Doesn't mean that people care about it and think it's something that
he cares deeply.
Okay, you found one person. Come on.
What about Westfie? What about Westfie Canny, the chief executive of Grange Park Opera, who says, "I don't listen to Land of Hope and Glory and say thank God I'm British. It actually makes me feel more alienated. Britain raped India, and that is what that song is celebrating." That's Westfie Canny.
Okay, doesn't mean that people like the song. Yeah, people don't have to like the
Well,
song.
Richard,
That's not how music
tell
works.
me what
What's
you think. Tell me what you think. Do you
I don't
approve
care
of these
about.
songs being performed at the proms or not?
I couldn't care less. I care about black people being killed by police. I care about refugees not having a safe route into this country. I care about the fact that employers still discriminate against people for having supposedly foreign sounding names. I couldn't care less about a song. And people who are trying to promote these stories are trying to divide us. We are in the middle of a crisis and we need to stick together. And this kind of confected outrage from failed actors like Lawrence Fox, who
Oh,
nobody
come
wants
on.
to see
He's
on
a
telly.
very successful actor. He's in that Netflix drama at the moment, White Lines.
He's clearly not as popular as he'd like to be. Otherwise, he wouldn't be spending his time on this rubbish, which is made up. My advice to people listening to this is ignore this rubbish. We are in the middle of a pandemic. Stick together because that's how we're going to get through it.
So you have no problem with these songs being performed at the proms? I just want to clarify.
Couldn't care less about them. They don't. It's a nice.
Do you
song
think
that
these songs
people
are
like.
racist?
I've got no reason to think they're racist. I'll tell you what, like my family, part of my family's from India. My family were completely decimated by the impacts of empire. I care about that. I do not care about a song which is very tangentially related to it. There are things that matter and the things that, frankly, are very, very peripheral.
Emma Webb, where do you stand on this? Because actually it does seem to be a real movement within the BBC over many years to get rid of these songs from last night at the proms, and they're using the coronavirus in order to do so this year.
Yeah, I agree with Richard that I think that if anybody really cares about issues to do with racism or any of the serious issues that we face, then trying to do things like removing songs that people really love and enjoy singing isn't the way to go about doing it. But I don't think he's right that this is a confected issue. We know what the BBC is like. We've seen it happening with our statues and the way that the identity politics and the culture wars have basically become institutionalized. And I think that what we're seeing, particularly with the BBC and the proms, this isn't something that has newly been suggested. This was suggested back when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening. People like Kehinde Andrews really, really do want to, I would say, almost maliciously attack anything that is British that people care about. And I think that they are, in a sense, Richard is right, that the people who want to do this are sowing division. I think they want to sow division. I think they want to create cultural tensions.
And Richard, that seems to be coming from the left, because when it comes to Dr. Kehinde Andrews, he also says that God Save the Queen needs to be axed as our national anthem. Do you agree with that?
I mean, I don't want to have a royal family, so I'd quite like not to have God Save the Queen as the national anthem. Look, there are a small number of people on the left who think that this is what we should focus on when we're fighting racism. They are very, very much in the minority, whereas, as far as I can tell, everyone on the right wants to talk about this culture wars nonsense constantly. So if you're asking who's trying to divide people, it's definitely people on the right.
Emma, your response?
I don't think so. I think that songs like God Save the Queen are a unifying force. And especially because, as I said, these are things that people really, really love, things people care about, and they get referred to in this sort of sneering, contemptuous way as flag wavers and called right wing. They're not. They're just normal Brits, normal patriotic people who have normal, healthy feelings of a love for their country and their history. And they get treated and spoken about in this contemptuous way. And this is part of it. We know, as I said, we know what the BBC is like. We know what our institutions have become like with all of this culture war stuff. We've seen it with even ice creams telling the Home Secretary what to do about illegal migration crossings and that kind of thing. We know what they're like. And it's this sort of sneering, elitist attitude towards people who have normal patriotic feelings. And this is just part of that.
I mean, Richard, I find it quite hard to believe that you couldn't look at the goings-on over the past few months and think that ordinary Brits aren't concerned that there is a very active attack on British culture, British history and British symbols by the left, because we've seen it with everyone from Winston Churchill to Queen Victoria to our national anthem.
Winston Churchill, Dan, come on. One person did something to a statue, and we're pretending
it's
that
more than
that's
that, Richard.
No, it's literally one person, Dan. That's literally one person did one thing to one statue.
There were a lot more than one. There was a lot more than one person there attacking that statue. There was a lot more than one person that caused multiple police officers to have to surround the Winston Churchill in Parliament Square and Sadiq Khan to put poor old Winston in a box.
That's literally not true. You've literally just said something that's not true, Dan. Multiple people were standing next to a statue. One person defaced it. They were clearly wrong to do that. One person defaced it, and that's literally turned into some huge culture wars thing. One person, possibly someone who pretends to be a leftist, defaced a statue. Literally tens of thousands of right-wing people trying to use that as an example of culture wars nonsense. They tried to divide people. Why? It's not something that the left is doing. It's clearly something that the right is doing. This isn't a big problem in our society. People defacing Winston Churchill
the left
statue
physically pulled down the Colston statue, breaking the law, and our police allowed them to do so. So you know that it was far, far more than one person. Far more than one person defaced the statues
of Winston Churchill
of Queen Victoria.
To compare Winston Churchill, to a slave trader is an astonishing thing to do, Dan.
That's what people on the left have done. That is what people on the left have done, Richard, because I've had many people on the left on this show, from Ash Sarkar onwards, who actually don't want Winston Churchill to be memorialised because they say he was a racist. So I think you're being
criticising Winston Churchill for something that he did do is not the same as what you've just done, which is comparing him to a slave trader. Yeah, the slave trader's statue deserves.
What I'm doing, Richard, is saying that there is a war on British history at the moment.
To suggest that Winston Churchill, who did some bad things and did some really great things, is somehow comparable to a slave trader who I think most people agree his statue should have come down.
Well, I'm not comparing him to that. It's the left. And I think you're being disingenuous for saying that conversation is not going on, because you know it is.
Criticising Winston Churchill for some of the things he did is not the same thing as pulling down the statue of a slave trader who deserved his slave trading ass to get pulled down and thrown into that river. It's a completely different thing. If anyone listening to this thinks you shouldn't ever criticise Winston Churchill for some very bad things that he did do early on in his career, that's not very British. That's completely against the profound principle of liberty and of discussing things in a rational and reasonable way.
Emma Webb, I'm not saying that Winston Churchill should not be criticised. I think all historical figures should be criticised. I think all history needs to be put into context. But I feel like a lot of Brits at the moment that there is a culture war against our history and tearing it down, erasing the songs, banning the songs from last night at the proms is just going to add into this feeling that the woke Muppets running the BBC actually just hate our country.
I think Richard really wants the rest of the left to be as reasonable as he is about this, actually. I was there when Winston Churchill's statue was defaced, and I can tell you that it was the mob who were saying that he was a racist and chanting obscene things about him. And, you know, with my think tank Civitas at the moment, we're keeping a log of all of the recorded instances of attacks on our statues. We're almost up to 300 entries since the BLM protest started, and that almost certainly isn't a comprehensive list of all of the things that have been defaced. There is a serious onslaught taking place against our history, and I think normal people are really feeling it. This is something that, you know, it resonates deeply with them. They feel that they are being personally attacked, and I think that there are people on the left who know this. They're trying to sow division using the culture wars and instrumentalizing things like this, because why would you go for something like Rule Britannia? Why would you go for someone like Winston Churchill? There's a reason for that, and it's because I think it's a kind of contemptuous, malicious attack that is supposed to make English people feel bad and guilty and ashamed of their heritage as much as people in the BBC may feel ashamed of Britain's history. And I don't think that's how normal people feel. And I don't think that it would be acceptable under any circumstances for any other group in this country to be attacked in this way and to have their culture and songs and things that they hold dear to be attacked in this way. I just don't think, we would marvel if this was happening to any other group of people. And it just seems as if, Englishness and the things that we have historically held dear and loved have just become faux pas, and we're not allowed to have them anymore. And the BBC is running 24/7 trying to make people feel guilty and ashamed of their history, and it's just not right.
Richard, do you understand that at all?
I think it's completely bonkers that some people quite rightly took down a statue of a slave trader, and that is being represented as an attack on English values. I mean, who listening to this thinks that
that's
English
not what Emma
values
said. So anyone
represented by
listening to that will understand that's not what Emma said. So don't misrepresent what Emma said. That's not fair. She wasn't talking about the Colston statue for 1 second. It was me who raised the Colston statue.
She talked about the 300 statues, and
Correct.
you were talking about the Colston statue.
Correct.
And what I'm saying is
that movement.
Right, so we've got one person that BBC anonymously said that maybe they were attacking that song, didn't say that it was because it was racist, just said that they might not want to have the song. And we've got one person defacing Winston Churchill's statue, and you guys are talking about that as an onslaught by the left against Englishness. It's bonkers. Englishness isn't under threat in any way. It's a wonderful, healthy thing that continues very, very much to be the dominant culture within our society, and it's in no way under threat, and there's no evidence for it being under threat, and it's literally confected nonsense by people who want to create clickbait, and it's at exactly the time when we should all be pulling together.
Richard Power Said, the former Labour advisor from the left, and Emma Webb, the Conservative commentator from the right. You've heard both sides of that debate. Who do you agree with? 0344